So the top figure is the temperature inside the house, so it's 22.2, but outside it's minus 18.9. And it has been, it's warmed up a little bit. When I got up this morning, it was minus 20, and it's supposed to be minus 25 later on in the week. So out and about, and this is what it looks like when it's minus 20. It's quite nice and bright, even though we're in the Finnish winter. 3 years ago, the Britney Spears and the Boosters concert tours, began. So it's now a good time, I think, to review how the Britney Spears and the Boosters have impacted on humanity. Because if you remember, like 3 or 4 years ago, there was people like that Van der Bosch guy and that Dolores Cahill, who basically said that 90% of people who attended the Britney Spears would be brown bread between 3 and 5 years after they went to the concerts. And I think Cahill actually said only one concert trip could be enough, to turn you into brown bread. So what I did was that I looked at official government data on the total number of people brown breading every year. Because there's no point looking at excess brown bread, because that's already processed, and in the processing there's all like ice stuck to my beard and stuff, so forgive that. That can be processed. So your only hope really is to look at the total number of brown breads in a year, and I'll show you those numbers now. Right, so first thing to realise is that these figures are only for England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland publish their data separately. So you can see the figures there. So 2012, just under 500,000 people were brown bread. In the year of the D91, it was about 20% higher than that. 607,922 people were brown bread in that year. What you can see that's quite interesting is you'd have expected 21 and 22 to show quite big decreases in the numbers of brown bread, because an abnormally high number of people were brown bread in 2020, and some of those people that were brown bread in 2020 would have otherwise have been brown bread in 21 and 22 had D91 not arrived. You can also see something else that's quite interesting, is that even prior to D91, the number of people brown breading every year was rising. Sorry for using code there, like the brown bread, but that's Cockney rhyming slang. Hopefully you'll understand that. For me personally, other people can talk about all sorts of stuff on Gulag Tube and get away with it. For me, anything just gets me banned, so I have to be. I'm actually reshooting this because I actually used the D word when I first tried to explain what's going on. So yeah, the big question then is, did the Britney Spears and the Boosters cause this mass brown breading that people were expecting? Or, some people like Dolores Cahill were expecting? Well, the answer is clearly not. What you can say is that the number of brown breads in 21 and 22, there was an increase during that year, which is quite interesting, bearing in mind you had the deadly divot year in 2020. That is surprising, and what will be really interesting is to see whether brown breads increase in 23 over 22 when that data is actually released. Whether total brown breads in 2023 were higher than in 2020 and higher than in 2021. If that's the case, then it shows that for me it's highly likely that attending the Britney Spears and the Boosters programs is correlated with an increased risk of becoming brown bread. So what we can say so far then is the apocalyptic prophecies that everybody that went to the Britney Spears and the Boosters is going to be brown bread. That's not come true, or it's not come true yet. Obviously we don't know, no one really knows what the long-term effects of going to the Britney Spears and the Boosters is going to be on people. Not even the people that designed the concert tour, they don't even know, because it was based on something that had never been done before. So there's no back data, so no one really knows. The other thing that I would say too is we shouldn't just be looking at brown breads. We should also be looking at people's look, just drop my glove there. People's general, like let's use the word elf. You know, ELF, like elves. You know, elf. Should be looking at people's general elf. You know, because I think there's a lot of people whose their elf, it's not as good as it was before. You know, I know people who've had all sorts of bad things happen to them. You know, like loss of the use of various parts of their body, and you know, all sorts of stuff. You know, obviously these lots of you know, people seem to be getting lots of that, but it only seems to be affecting those that went to the Britney Spears and the Boosters, which is obviously just a coincidence. The other thing as well then, of course, is the possibility that the total number of brown breads, that data that I just showed you, by the way, that all came from official sources. I'll show you those sources at the end of the video. That data could just be fabricated. It would be relatively easy to do that. Just need a couple of people at the top of an organisation. Bob's your uncle. So against that, we have to look at sort of anecdotal evidence. So there's people that I know who seems to be a lot of people this year, or sorry, 2023, who disappeared. You know, doesn't seem to be, what do they call it now? Something suddenly. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of people disappearing permanently, suddenly, unexpected, often quite young people. You've also seen these people as well, that they were very, very vocal, many of them, about you should attend the Britney Spears and the Boosters concerts. And it seems to me a disproportionate number of these people have been brown bread. So yeah. Oh, the other thing to say as well is that here in Finland there was an article in the local paper, Satakunnan Kansa, the people of Satakunta, who said that you know, the people where the places where they store brown bread, those places were full to capacity. There was a bit of an issue with they couldn't accommodate all of the brown breads that had been occurring. So that's another indicator, isn't it? Yeah, but as I say, the main thing is the terrible scenario, the nightmare scenario. It hasn't happened. If you look at brown breads in 2022, they were about 570,000, which is about 15% up on what they were, you know, 2012, 2014. So that's quite significant. It's about 15% higher than it should be. And as I say, we don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. There could be people that have got various things wrong with them, and maybe they end up having their the number of years on the planet cut back somewhat compared to what they would have had they not gone to the Britney Spears and the Boosters concerts. What else can we say? Another thing to consider, I'm just going to go across the lake, so it's all fresh, so you might as well have a look at that. Would you use a substance that turned people into brown bread quickly, or would you use a substance that turned them into brown bread slowly? And I would think that you would probably want to use the substance that did it more slowly. So 15% more brown breads every year for 10 years, 15 years. That would achieve your Depop goal very nicely in a way that would be far less detectable than using a substance that turned 80% of the people that had it into brown bread in the space of 2 or 3 years. So for me, it's not surprising at all. And also, of course, you would want the substance to cause brown bread in all sorts of different ways, you know. You wouldn't want it to just cause one elf problem. You would want it causing many elf problems, and then it would be much harder for people to establish a link between the substance and the increase in the number of brown breads. You know, you could just say, well, this was other things. People have been brown breaded by this thing for years and years and years. This is nothing unusual here. Walk on by. The other thing as well that I thought about is, if you think about people like Dolores Campbell and that the Van den Bosch guy, there's also something interesting here, which is the fact that they're quite high profile people. Their Gulag Tube videos weren't banned, and basically they were allowed to make these catastrophic predictions about brown breads. And what I think the goal was to get people to go along with that, recycle those predictions. And I think maybe there's a possibility that those people were bad actors, and the whole point of it was to try to discredit anybody who tried to make a claim between the substance, the Britney Spears, and the brown breads. You know, oh look, they predicted that 90% of people who went to the Britney Spears would turn into brown bread. But you know, that never happened. Therefore, these people are lunatics, they're conspiracy theorists, their crazy predictions never happened. Whereas, you know, that was never the plan. The plan was to achieve maybe 15% excess brown breads every year for maybe 10-15 years. Maybe that was always the goal. Not a sudden mass brown breading off that the likes of Cahill and Van den Bosch predicted. Maybe this was just a red herring. But what we can say, I think, is we don't know about the government statistics, obviously, but what we can say is we can observe with our own eyes and our own ears what's going on. You know, so if we're seeing people around us who are struggling with their ELF, ELF, and we can see that a lot of people that we knew, there seems to be more people turning into brown bread when it wasn't their times, and you know, brown breading from all sorts of rapid onset can't use that word, can I? Rapid onset problems, yeah, that turn them into brown bread. Then the goal's still there. It was just that they were never going to pursue that goal recklessly. They always wanted to ensure that they had plausible deniability, and a much slower rate of brown breading over many years was always more likely than using a substance that was going to cause, you know, a huge increase in brown bread 2 or 3 years after the substance was given. So yeah, so that's all I want to say today. It's, I don't know what temperature it is now. It's like minus